The story of James, Jimmy the Gent Burke, and the Lufthansa Heist is not merely a tale of a robbery. It is a sprawling epic of greed, betrayal, and the cold-blooded reality of organized crime in 20th century New York. To understand the heist, one must first understand the man who orchestrated it. Jimmy Burke was a paradox, a man who would hand out $100 bills to waiters and doormen, earning him his nickname, yet someone who would personally garrote an associate over a minor disagreement. Because of his Irish heritage, he could never be a made man in the Italian mafia, but his brilliance as a criminal earner made him the right hand of Paul Vario, a powerful capo regime in the Lucchese crime family. By the late 1970s, John F. Kennedy International Airport, formerly Idlewild, was essentially a private ATM for the Lucchese family. The airport was a massive, sprawling complex with security protocols that were laughably inadequate compared to the volume of wealth passing through its gates. Jimmy Burke and his crew had spent years perfecting the art of the airport heist, usually involving the hijacking of cargo trucks. However, Burke was tired of small scores. He wanted a big one, a score that would cement his legacy and provide enough wealth to retire every member of his crew. The opportunity presented itself through a chain of desperate men. Louis Werner, a cargo agent for Lufthansa, was a man drowning in gambling debts. He owed over $20,000 to Marty Krugman, a bookmaker who operated a wig shop and had deep ties to the mob. To settle his debt, Werner offered Krugman the ultimate tip. He knew exactly how and when untraceable American currency, flown in from West Germany for exchange, arrived at the Lufthansa terminal. Krugman took this information to Henry Hill, a close friend of Jimmy Burke, and the wheels of the greatest heist in American history began to turn. Jimmy Burke was a master of logistics. He did not simply rush into the terminal. He spent months studying the internal operations of Building 261. Through Warner, Burke obtained the blueprints of the vault, the schedules of the security guards, and the secret double key system required to open the high-security areas. He learned that the terminal held a massive amount of cash that stayed in the vault over the weekends because the armored car services didn't operate on Sundays. The team Burke assembled was a who's who of the South Ozone Park underworld. It included his son, Frank Burke, the volatile and terrifying Tommy DeSimone, the veteran robbers Joe Manry and Robert McMahon, and Parnell Stacks Edwards, a blues musician and part-time criminal responsible for disposing of the evidence. Burke emphasized one rule above all else: no one was to use their real names, and no unnecessary violence was to be used inside the terminal, as a corpse would bring far more police heat than a simple robbery. The execution of the heist began in the early hours of December 11, 1978. A black Ford Econoline van, stolen weeks prior, slipped through a gate that had been left intentionally unlocked by a compromised insider. The crew moved with the precision of a special forces unit. They were masked and armed with semi-automatic weapons. Upon entering the terminal, they quickly rounded up the night shift employees. One of the most chilling aspects of the heist was how much the robbers knew about the victims. To ensure the employees complied with the codes for the vault, the gunman mentioned the names of the employees' wives and children, describing their homes and daily routines. This psychological terror was more effective than any physical blow. Within 40 minutes, the crew had forced the warehouse manager to open the vault. They found themselves staring at a mountain of cash, far more than they had originally anticipated. They worked in a feverish silence, throwing nearly 40 duffel bags filled with $5 million in untraceable bills and nearly $1 million in jewelry into the van. At 4:16 a.m., the van pulled away. The robbery had lasted 64 minutes, and not a single shot had been fired. As the sun rose over New York, the magnitude of the crime became apparent. The FBI and the NYPD were stunned. It was the largest cash robbery in U.S. history at the time. While the public was fascinated by the audacity of the crime, Jimmy Burke was beginning to unravel. The heist had been too successful.
He realized that the sheer volume of money would bring a level of federal scrutiny that the Lucchese family could not ignore. Burke's paranoia was further fueled by the behavior of his crew. Despite his strict orders not to make any large purchases that would attract attention, the members of the heist began buying luxury cars and expensive jewelry within days. One associate bought a pink Cadillac for his wife, while another began flaunting rolls of $100 bills in local bars. To Burke, these men were no longer his brothers in arms. They were walking liabilities who could trade his life for a reduced sentence.
The celebration of the heist quickly turned into a massacre orchestrated by Burke himself. The first to die was Parnell Stax Edwards. He'd been tasked with taking the getaway van to a scrapyard in New Jersey to be crushed. Instead, high on drugs, he left the van in a no-parking zone in Brooklyn. When the police found the van with Stax's fingerprints and a muddy shoe print, Burke knew he had to act. Stax was shot to death in his apartment shortly after. This was the beginning of the Lufthansa Purge. Burke decided that the easiest way to keep the $6 million for himself and protect his freedom was to kill everyone involved in the robbery. Marty Krugman, the man who provided the tip, disappeared and was never found. It is believed his body was put through a car compactor. Joe Manry and Robert McMahon were found shot in the back of the head in a car. Teresa Ferrara, who knew about the money through her mob connections, was found dismembered in a river. Even members of the crew who had been Burke's friends for decades were not safe. The body count eventually rose to over 10 people. The millions of dollars stolen from the terminal were being paid out in blood.
Jimmy Burke might have gotten away with the heist if not for the ultimate betrayal from within his inner circle. In 1980, Henry Hill, Burke's closest associate and the man who helped coordinate the heist, was arrested on unrelated drug trafficking charges. Knowing that Burke was killing everyone associated with the Lufthansa job, Hill realized his name was likely next on the list. To save his own life, Hill became a federal informant. Hill's testimony was the smoking gun the government needed, while the physical money from the Lufthansa heist was never recovered, leading many to believe it was buried or laundered into Italian bank accounts. Hill provided enough testimony to dismantle the Burke crew. Burke was eventually convicted not for the heist itself, but for his involvement in a massive point-shaving scandal involving Boston College basketball, and later for the murder of Richard Eaton, a con man. James Burke died of lung cancer in 1996 while serving a life sentence in a New York prison. He took the secrets of the Lufthansa heist to his grave. To this day, the nearly $6 million in cash and jewelry remains one of the world's great unsolved mysteries. The heist changed the way airports handled security and marked the beginning of the end for the traditional American mafia's dominance in New York. The story of Jimmy Burke is a grim reminder of the reality of the wise guy lifestyle. It began with the thrill of a multi-million-dollar score and ended in a series of lonely deaths in parking lots and prison cells. Burke was a mastermind who executed the perfect crime, but in the end, he was destroyed by the very thing that made him successful: his cold, calculating refusal to trust anyone. The Lufthansa heist remains a permanent fixture in criminal folklore, a testament to a time when a small group of men could bring the world's busiest airport to its knees and vanish into the New York night.